this is why many become workaholics.
Everybody is lonely at one time or another, and some people more than others. I sent myself Valentines, and those were the only Valentines I got.
It's always fascinating to watch people who have made it in this life and still find some occasions to reveal their humanity, making us to resonate with them even more and increasing their power in our eyes. It's fascinating because we think of them as gods, and yet they experience tribulations in their lives as well, having anxieties and depressions, being lonely. And this video is about loneliness, a shadow that you will never be able to escape, but to embrace. Let's see if we can find some words of endearment, words of wisdom.
I know how it feels to be alone. I know how it feels to be around people and feel alone. Like, I'll be around a million people and I'll like still feel alone. Like,
yes, just that knowledge that it's all for nothing and you're alone. You know, it's down there. And sometimes when things clear away, you're not watching it, you're in your car and you start going, oh no, here it comes that I'm alone. Like, it starts to visit on you. You know, just the sadness. Yes. Life is tremendously sad just by, being in it.
One of the common denominators with these celebrities is that they can become overnight success without even realizing what happened, especially if they start out as young actors, young entertainers, athletes. They don't know anything about life and no one has bothered to explain them, to show them the way and give them the tools to tackle the psychological strains of being perceived as a god. Suddenly everyone sees something in you that you don't see yourself.
All of a sudden I get back to LA. I'm by myself. My girl's not there. I'm sitting in the fucking room and I'm like, what do I do? Like, I don't even know what is Jake Paul right now?
This is what I was talking about. You are working so hard in order to achieve that success, the top of the mountain, that you forget to engineer your inner world. You're very busy in constructing the external world and totally forget what you cannot see. And in that sense, you have to remember, what you perceive is what you feel inside. You cannot separate the observer from the observation.
But it does say something about the human condition, you know? It says that here's an example of a man that had every dream and aspiration, every resource to do it and achieve those things, had every opportunity in the world to be happy, but then ended up one of the most lonely, sad human beings I've ever heard of. So it says something about the human condition, certainly.
The feelings of loneliness that I think we all, even you, sometimes have experienced. I like my own company for a while. A bit, and then at some point even I'll get annoyed with myself. There's something really lonely about that, and a bit frightening for one who is not at peace with themselves.
That's the core expression, peace with yourself. It's a very fascinating era that we live in. We can become something from nothing overnight, just like that, and it's a very huge leap. The leap that no one prepares you for. And as per model of hierarchy of needs by Maslow, initially you are very busy with chasing basic physiological needs, and the moment you achieve them, you get all the necessities that are needed for the human being to go by in day-to-day life. You start to wondering, you start to crave something more, something deeper, something more meaningful to you. And when that leap happens instantaneously, you are not mature to tackle the philosophical implications that transformation bears with itself.
Mike, would you say you felt very lonely in your boxing career?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I always, after I finished running, I would go to some girl's house.
Right.
Like at 4 in the morning, I get up running, I call my call and say I'm coming over there.
You like find people to get around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Oh man, it brings out memories. I've had similar experiences to his. I was working in the cubicle and every weekend I tried to fix some date to go on and have some women to bring to my place, have some company, have some intimacy. And that kind of a routine didn't work out quite well every time. And those lonely nights, those lonely weekends, I was laying on my bed, having this hollow feeling, kind of feeling pity for myself, for the type of lifestyle I was having and why I was doing what I was doing. And paradoxically enough, even those times that I was able to get company, I still felt empty inside. the days after. That hollow feeling cannot be filled with something external. It's a natural progression of your psychological development. You have to embrace your own demons, your own shadow, because those things don't dissipate. Those things have to be incorporated within yourself so that you can become at peace with yourself.
It started by me just sitting inside all day, and then it's like, then you get bored. Then you're like, well, I could just be high and I could have a whole adventure in this room.
It happens. You feel like you're alone, and you feel like it's only you, and you're in your bubble. And I wish I had someone at that time who could just pull me aside and, hey, it's gonna be okay. It'll be okay.
It's funny how loneliness has to be tackled by yourself, but it helps quite a bit if there's someone to pull you aside and pinpoint at the milestones that you have to walk through. Nevertheless, that's a path that you have to walk on your own.
I kind of felt abandoned. I've seen people choose material items over me. I've seen people choose status quo over me. I've seen people like when you give them ultimatums, they just choose everything besides you. So I've just been placed in situations that are very heartbreaking as far as like people, period.
Putting ultimatums comes from a place of lacking self-esteem and self-love. Where you don't value yourself, you have to threaten somebody else in order to accept you, tolerate you, love you, want you for who you are. And in actuality, that won't even help you. It might relieve some part of that pain, but it's only temporary. And when you state ultimatums, people recognize your weakness and you push them further away from yourself.
From working with all the celebrities that I've worked with, I've found that sometimes the people that are the most famous are the most lonely.
I lead a very quiet, normal kind of, really, I mean, my private life is a boring disaster, but work is good.
Good, I'm glad. I don't think it probably is a boring disaster. I think it's
true.
Absolutely fine.
I don't cry for me, Argentina.
Aww.
No.
This is why many become workaholics. They try to tap that numbness by distracting themselves and working much more than they need. The joy of life doesn't suit them. They cannot recognize it. It's painful, it's suffering. So essentially what you do when you distract yourself with work, with friends, with the loved ones, with the partnerships, is that you try to escape that excruciating moment of embracing the pain within. The biggest barrier with mental issues is that it cannot be measured. If I'll tell you to build a house, you will make measurements, you will educate yourself, you will harvest knowledge that is necessary to build that house. It's much more simple than taking care of your own shit. There's nothing to measure, there's nothing to see, there's nothing to feel. Materialistically speaking, it's the unknown that makes you afraid.
Everybody is lonely at one time or another, and some people more than others. I sent myself Valentines, and those were the only Valentines I got.
And people can't tolerate isolation. You know, it's a very rare person who can be on their own and stay together.
I remember the story of my friend who was working as a cab driver tell me that he would work during the Christmas, he would get extra paid. And during Christmas Eve there were a lot of lonely souls, just wanting to drive them around, look at the city, see the lights, and bring them back home. Well-off people, wealthy people. And that's sad that you have to put so much work and dedication to something external that at the end of the day doesn't bring you any fulfillment.
You can carry that whole responsibility of being a winner, but the toughest part and the other side of it is a much darker, lonelier aspect of sport, is that you go back to your hotel room and everything is upon you.
I talked about excellence being a lonesome journey in previous videos. It will hurt you. It will make you cry. Initially, it will inflict you excruciating amount of pain and suffering because you are walking a path nobody else has walked. But if you keep going, keep pushing, embrace your journey, embrace your destiny. If you befriend that loneliness, the life will become even so sweeter.
You often seem very lonely, even though you're so talented. Is that true?
It's better than it used to be. I used to sit in my hotel room and just cry just by myself. Because you can't get out, there's fans everywhere and helicopters and press following. Now that I've had my children, it's helped a lot. But still it comes and goes. I think some melancholy is good.
The saddest part is that many of these celebrities have never experienced the joy of living, being alive. We have heard countless stories about celebrities taking their lives because they couldn't bear the pain. And in this case, as Michael said, he was trying to escape his loneliness by surrounding himself with other people, with other beings, getting deeply involved with his work. The external and internal worlds have to be developed in parallel. You cannot become proficient at one part and totally ignore the other one. If you are Zen, I'm sorry to say, you still have bills to pay. If you are a rich and a wealthy, well-off person, I'm sorry to say, materialism doesn't bring any happiness. Financial power brings comfort and time, which can be leveraged in order to find that happiness.
There's psychological needs that are just as valuable and important as physical needs. Like we know we have needs for nutrients, we know have needs for water. We have needs psychological for all sorts of different things. Our communities are incredibly important. Love is incredibly important. Family is incredibly important.
I would say that your own well-being is your own doing. You have to start with a solid ground. And this is why many preach about mastering your mind. There's no escaping that fact in life. And yet again, you cannot separate the observation from the observer. Work on your filter.
Get to be friends with your loneliness. See what's on the other side of it. Because often, really, when we describe loneliness, I think what we're saying is when I'm on my own, I feel bad about myself. I feel like I'm not loved enough. I feel like I'm not good enough.
What you resist will persist. What you look at will disappear. Looking at something is being aware, acknowledging the realities of life, accepting what is, and resisting is trying to escape it, brush it under a mat, which will eventually pile up and explode in your face. Embracing loneliness is putting your baseline on a very low level. Everything above it will feel like a heaven. Want to know more about loneliness and its role in your personal development? Check this video out. What's your biggest fear in this life? Tell me in the commentary section. But for now, Hossein out.